Bluffing. It's probably the most famous aspect of poker, especially among new or non-players. Perhaps it's that romantic notion that someone can get something when they actually have nothing. In reality, bluffing isn't anywhere near as prominent in poker as is often assumed, even at the higher levels of the game. And that's probably because bluffing is a high-risk strategy. After all, you're trying to convince another player that you have a great hand when in fact you have zilch. But it's an important part of the game and a skill you should develop for two main reasons. Number one, so you can use it against opponents effectively, and number two, so you can improve your chances of recognizing when you're being bluffed. At the right time, against the right opponent, a bluff can be a very powerful move and one that can bring you lots of lovely chips. So, what cards do your opponents have? And what cards do they think you have? If you could answer these questions every hand, you'd be unbeatable. But, as most of us are mortal, we have to bluff occasionally, and that means taking a number of factors into account. You might start with your table image. That's the perception the other players have of your playing style. Now, if you've been playing lots of hands, they'll see you as a loose player, and if you've been raising a lot, then you'll be seen as aggressive. In either case, a bluff is less likely to work than if you played only a select number of hands. However, if you have only played a few hands during the tournament, then you'll be seen as a tight player, and you're much more likely to succeed with a bluff. You'll also need to think about the type of players at the table. Loose, aggressive players are easily identifiable as players who play almost every hand and raise frequently. Any sign of these players should have you reconsidering a bluff, because these types will call or re-raise with practically any two cards. A tight, passive player is your ideal candidate for a bluff, as they play so few hands anyway and hardly ever raise. And even in the unlikely event that they do raise, you can still get off the hand before doing your stack too much damage. Then there's your position at the table. Bluffs are more likely to get through if you have position on the other players. That is, you act after them. When you're trying to disguise your hand and deceive your opponent with a bluff, there are a number of playing variations and cunning tactics that you can use. A stone cold or naked bluff is used when the hand you're holding is practically worthless and has little or no chance of improving. It's risky, but you might try it, especially if you've shown strength earlier in the hand and you suspect your opponent doesn't have particularly good cards. You'll use a semi-bluff when you're betting with outs, that is, cards left in the deck that, should they come, will improve your hand. Perhaps you've got a flush draw or straight draw, but don't want to chase it all the way down to the final river card. A semi-bluff here means that even if you get called, you still have a chance to win by completing your flush or straight. The positional bluff is used to apply pressure to opponents and is often seen when a player in a late position is trying to steal the blinds. The positional bluff also works well when you raise in one of the later betting rounds in the hope of getting a player to pass their better hand. From then on, they know that you'll have the chance to act after them throughout the game and that they could face further raises from you. This will force them to only play premium hands. So, what if you think you're being bluffed? Use the re-bluff. It's a very high-risk play, but can work wonders for your table image and your chip stack when you catch someone at it. Now, don't bluff too often in the game. It'll be a quick way to blow your stack of chips. Your opponents will figure you out as a bluffer because eventually you're going to get called. And once you've shown those dodgy cards, your cover is totally blown. If you do get caught though, try and use it to your advantage. If you get a big hand soon after being forced to show that bluff, no one will believe you've now got good cards. Do look for scare cards. If your opponent really doesn't like the look of that ace or king on the flop, then you can probably represent it. That is, play in the way you would as if you actually had the ace or king and force others out of the pot. A board that comes all one suit provides the same opportunity too, in that you can represent a flush. Do think about the size of the bet in relation to the blinds and the pot. Bet too little and you'll be called. And do vary your bets. Be prepared to do the opposite to what might be expected, but in a controlled way. This will confuse your opponents and present more bluffing opportunities for you during the game. Finally, don't ever underestimate the value of knowing the different types of players. Poker players generally fall into one of four main types or styles. Take time to learn these and it'll pay dividends when it comes to bluffing.